This sounds like it's Back to the Future. Is this going to work at all?
Back to the Future, too little, too late. And as I warned Bloomberg listeners to preserve capital nearly 14 months ago when J.C. Penney was at 42 and Ron Johnson was selling all his stock at 42, this is a stock that's going from 15 to 5 to 2 and may not make it. It's a good change, but
a good change. Why? Okay, so we even if J.C. Penney isn't going to make it long run, you believe, why might this not be a bad idea in the short run?
Because Penney's always been promotional. Before Johnson came in, the discounts were up to 78%. So they were on par with Macy's. But now,
and that's the consumer mindset when they think of J.C. Penney, sale?
Sale, Macy's, Dillard's multi-regional in the South. And now Penney's lost thousands of good people. Glenn Murphy at the Gap has hired Michael Francis, the former president. DeStefano, the head of e-commerce, just left. Frank Blake just hired the VP of marketing. So right strategy, but doesn't have the people really to put it in place. And the shoppers have already gone. They've lost 1/3 of their online business and about 1/4 of their on-land business.
All right, but could we make the argument, well, now is when it looks cheap. They made a mistake last year in that not offering promotions didn't work for them. So now a year later, could Ron Johnson and company say, that was the mistake we made last year. We have a smaller inventory. We've got this new home department. We've got Joe Fresh. We've got Marchesa. Let's offer some promotions. We got Mother's Day event coming up. We have Easter coming up. Maybe this is the time when it looks cheap.
Maybe you should run J.C. Penney.
Yeah.
Stephanie should.
I ain't moving to Texas. Yeah.
Stephanie.
Plano, Texas?
Yeah.
No.
Correct on all fronts, but the Easter ad this week is still 20 to 25% off. So the discounts aren't deep enough, and ultimately there isn't enough money on the revolver. And to Stephanie's points, you need the vendor support to support the markdowns and the promotional programs. The vendors have already some vendors have already started factoring Penney's receivables for payments due on April 30th. The annualized rate is over 20%. So if the vendors aren't there, the discounts won't be deep enough to get the shoppers there.
So if I understand what you're saying, J.C. Penney is going to start running into trouble with inventory soon?
Not yet. The key is between Memorial Day and Labor Day, especially Labor Day, because if the vendors ask for LCs or letters of credit, which is, you and Stephanie know, is a straight drawdown on working capital, then it's going to be tough to make the Christmas, Hanukkah holidays.
That's what I was saying, right? So eventually they're just not going to be, the vendors aren't going to work with them collaboratively to get enough merchandise into the store. And that, to me, I mean, that does sound like a bit of a kiss of death.
Rick, real cause for concern. The one wild card is Penney could be a REIT, try to do sale leasebacks with a lot of their property owners. But on the other hand, Simon defaulted on a $78 million bank loan in one of the bigger, better malls in outside of Pittsburgh last year that was co-anchored by Penney and Sears. And even though it had a Macy's and Dick's Sporting Goods, that's a bad barometer in terms of customer counts, because the vacancy rate in that mall dropped to 70% because Penney and Sears weren't cutting it.
Now, are there so few executives, top executives in the retail world? Well, you were just mentioning those who've already left. We also look at some top people at Penney, and they're making the commute from California, from Boston, from New York, very expensive. Is it so thin at the top of retail that there's really a handful of people? If you don't have Mickey Drexler, you can't get it right?
It's thin at the top of J.C. Penney. It's not thin at the top of retail. Where it's thin is executive search. So executive search keeps putting in this collection of less capable people in all these retail chains where they're quite capable people.
But why are they so incapable? I feel like when you look at banking, right, there's this bench of endless bankers who are saying, I should be the next CEO of this joint. I should be the next head of banking. And here we're talking about retail, which just doesn't seem that complicated, yet we can't seem to find anyone to get it done right.
Well, there's a whole collection of people who have turned around Penney and Sears before. Alan Questrom, Vanessa Castagna, Bob Mettler, Arthur Martinez, Liz, Liz.
And they just can't get the right people in?
No, it's the executive search firms, and the board of Penney is primarily retired people, most of whom don't know the detail and the rhythm of retail, so they don't know who they're looking for. The search firms are putting in the guys who may look great and dress right, but for retail, you might need a lot of short, schlubby men and women that know the fashion trends and know the consumer and how to beat the competition.
If they look great and dress well, hire Eric Schatzker. He should be the new CEO of JCPenney. You thought it should be me? How about Eric?
Just a fast footnote. Eddie Basha, one of the great retailers and philanthropists and educators, died in Arizona last night, and just want to recognize him and his passing because, to Stephanie's point, there are a lot of great retailers of all ages and many to turn Penney around.